Yeah, my suspicion of why you were getting the fatigue from those treatments in Mexico and pretty much in all overseas location, they use very similar methods, which is to get the stem cells. They can get it from your own body or from the birth tissue. I definitely think the birth tissue would be superior for most, in most cases, most people, when they get older, their cells are going to degrade in quality. So the birth tissue is vastly superior in potency. But the problem with all these overseas locations, there's a reason that it went overseas, is because they don't have to participate in the kind of clinical study that's required to use expanded cells in the US. So if they want to give you large number of cells, then they have to do it overseas if they want to avoid all the money that needs to be spent and time and energy that's required if they have to do in the US. So they won't be able to make as much money if they do in the US, and it's a lot of hassle. So people just move overseas. So in Mexico, Colombia, Panama, in all these places, very, very similar. So they expand the cells, and it sounds great, right? I'm giving you 150 million cells instead of the 40, that I'm giving you. Sounds a lot less and, kind of paltry in comparison to these large numbers, because I've heard numbers of 150, 200, 300. So you have to realize it's very easy to give people those kind of numbers, because the 300 million cells is not going to cost very much more than 150 million cells, because you're just growing them in cultures. So with large number of passages, the passages is each time when you change the cells from a culture medium to another culture medium, each time you do that, there going to be changes, especially after 3 or 4, we call those passages. So then you can, each passage, you get a lot more cells, not just doubling of cells. There's many generations before you need to change to a new medium before you get to a new passage. So you're getting tremendous number of cells, especially if you keep, moving them to a new container, dividing them, moving them to a new container, then you can really almost like growing cells on trees. You just keep expanding them. And the more you expand, the more they will have their own genetic expressions. So they will start to express the surface markers that's consistent with the donor, not a recipient. When the cells are in the human body, if it's in a recipient body, then it has a tendency to learn to adapt to the new environment. But if you're just growing them in a petri dish or in a culture medium, in an incubator, there's no signals to tell the cells what direction they should divide. And their tendency is they get a little stressed. So they start to express surface markers, start to differentiate a little bit. And that is what's going to cause the new body, the recipient body, to not recognize what is this, because this is no longer stem cells. Stem cells have very few surface markers that actually mark them as foreign. So they can go in almost like, I'm a blank cell. I'm not going to affect how you function. But when you start to expand the cells, then all of a sudden they have all these markers that show them who they were before they were, same as a donor. So your body starts to mount an immune reaction. So that's what I've heard in a lot of these clinics overseas, that people are having serious reactions. Sometimes when they give them treatment 3 times in a week, the first treatment, they may have no reaction because your body is like, okay, these are new cells. But by the time they were given second treatment a few days later, they're having an immune reaction. By the third time is very strong reaction, because your body just got primed and learned how to attack these cells. So I'm not surprised that you were getting significant fatigue, in your words, extreme fatigue. And yes, when you were given less cells, this space fairly far apart, 3 months, then the fatigue is not going to be as much as profound, because you weren't given as much foreign material for your body to react to, and your body probably has calmed down a little bit. So that's a potential issue. So just the high number doesn't equate to high efficacy. Actually, I've seen studies showing higher numbers, 10 times the number of cells compared to unexpanded cells, giving less results, maybe 70% efficacy. So you're reducing your efficacy. So that's something I think you were obviously not aware of, because that was not talked about, in all the marketing material from these locations. They just say, we're giving you so many cells and this is fantastic. So there's no fine prints for you to understand the nuances. Yeah. So I'm glad that you kept digging.